Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to episode 11 of Lighthearted Dads.
11.
MashaAllah.
Walaikum salam. First thing first.
You always forget
11.
that. Yeah, 11, MashaAllah. I think the last episode was quite deep, if you remember.
Yeah, did you go mad?
I didn't go mad. No. You ended
Oh,
up crying.
no. Oh,
He was on camera.
really?
Yeah, bro. I didn't cut you out.
I actually didn't go deep into it, man. Rah. The last episode was crazy. Wallahi, it's like one of my favorites, actually, because I really got to know who you really are, what you went through, and I've got a different level of respect. I've had a high level of respect for you anyway, but after that, I was just thinking, subhanAllah, I was just imagining myself in there, and I've learned a lot from that episode, subhanAllah, like to actually know someone that's so close to you go through life-threatening cancer, recover from it, and doing what you're doing today is such a motivational for myself and for everyone else that listened in, if that makes sense. So I'm 100% sure that anyone that's listened in, they've took a lot of gems from it, and we definitely can say that we shouldn't be taking life for granted. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you saw the last episode, but before I start questioning this brother, let's get into him.
Yeah, no. As you would have already noticed, there's somebody else in the studio today who isn't Nur, I think.
He isn't. He isn't.
No. Okay, right. So
he's got a note in his face though. He's
Mashallah.
white as anything.
Mashallah.
Mashallah.
So
You see two dark guys, and then you see, mashallah, a moonlight in the corner.
yeah, we just found the brother loitering outside, and we thought we'd put him in,
Yeah.
inshallah. So, who are you?
My name's Tariq.
Mashallah, Br
And,
Tariq.
I'm Nur's friend, and he just dragged me in here, and I'm just sitting here now.
You do know both of us are Nur, right?
There's Nur over there.
Yeah,
The Nur over there. He's dragged me in here.
mashallah. So, who are you? Just give us an introduction. Like,
Mm,
what do you do?
well, my name's Tariq, and what in terms of life or employment,
Life, employment, everything.
or I work in housing. So I have been for many years, like 15 years. I've seen a lot in terms of that, and in life, just average Joe. Really, I don't know what else to add to that.
I've never seen you this quiet ever, bro.
Have you got any
I'm
more?
camera shy. I'm
Yeah.
camera shy. Yeah, it's making me nervous.
Have you got any more info?
It's incriminating. If
Sisters, he's single. Send me if you're interested. Then send me. I'll send you his details.
Alright, it's not marriage
no,
matrimonial service, bro.
and I might not
Come
be.
on.
Yeah, no, I'm joking. Like, I've always tried to hook brothers up, to get them married. It's mashallah, a beautiful brother. Tariq is a friend of mine that I've known for a very long time. Alhamdulillah, we actually met each other through a friend, became gym partners, and alhamdulillah, over time, massive transition for both of us from being out there in the world to literally park all of that side and then coming into Deen, looking into life in a different way rather than enjoying life to the max. Tariq is also a very intelligent person, alhamdulillah. I don't want to say anything else that's good about him, but the reason why I've invited him over today is because his thought process is very different, and he sees things that sometimes that we might miss. And like, us, there's been 10 episodes of our thoughts and how we think and stuff like that. So it was really good to bring someone who's completely different, because me and him, we think completely different, and he thinks very differently to you, from what I know of you. So it was just like, you know what, Tariq, you'll be actually really good to come in and have get to know Nuri Bhai. And I think you guys will bounce really, really well
I
with
just
each
met
other.
him 30 seconds ago. We
I
just
know,
shook hands
but
for the
from-
first time, yeah.
Yeah, but from what I know, and he'll tell you some things about his experience and how things changed from his side. And, he was telling me about like counseling therapies and all this experience that he has he actually went through, like, oh, not went through, but he knows about this stuff. So let's bring that out because I've
Yeah,
never
no.
done it. So
Definitely. I
yeah.
think, you know, you touched upon the discussion before. You know, one of the things, you know, when I set up Involved Fathers, I've had people reach out and contact. And some of them came from fathers who were actually looking for support in order to gain access to their children. So they've gone through separation and they've gone through that situation. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to kind of provide that support. However, that was always in my mind that something needs to be out there. There are loose pockets that I'm kind of engaged with as well, who provide support to fathers who are being alienated from the children. But again, that needs you know, greater kind of work and awareness to be raised about that as well. Similarly, I also got kind of people inquiring, saying, and fathers actually, or husbands, who are inquiring, saying that they're going through domestic violence. And so that was, you know, I've read up a lot about this, I've heard a lot about it, but it was the first time I kind of started to interact with individuals who had actually gone through it. And that was a massive kind of learning curve for me to understand a lot more about like men who are suffering domestic violence. Though when we look at domestic violence, yes, the vast majority is women who suffer it. But we are seeing very slow, but you know, a growth in men actually suffering. And a lot of the time, there are actually men out there who are suffering, but they're also staying in silence because there's a stigma attached. You know, how can a man
Definitely.
kind of suffer domestic violence? So it was really actually mind blowing in that sense for me, kind of opening up and trying to understand how is it. Because naturally, we know men are strong. MashaAllah, Br Tariq, you look very fit and strong. But there's brothers who came who are like big. They're like over 6 foot. They're like giants. And they were saying, and they worked out, they're big. And they're going through domestic violence. And I just couldn't get my head around it. It took a while. And then I understood. The more I engaged, I actually understood about it. And you realize, subhanAllah, that's another area of support that's also kind of required. Alhamdulillah, there's a lot of support out there now. And more awareness to support sisters and you know, and women who are going through domestic violence.
Like like the police, yeah, like the UK system,
Or the UK system.
yeah, because that supports them like 100%, right?
Irrespective of that, you know, if I'm real, like I said, look, there are cases, you know, there are issues. There are women who go through everything, and I got this thing where absolutely I can't stand physical violence against women. Yeah,
100%.
so that's something which is thing. Obviously, things have evolved a lot more, especially when it comes to divorce and separation. Where you got, you know, that term being used, you know, abuse, isn't it? Abuse or violence, and whether that's psychological, emotional, and all these other ones. And sometimes they can be quite hard to evidence because physical abuse is sometimes apparent and can be seen. So that's one side of it. That, you know, and those support out there and awareness out there, which is good. But from what I understand, there isn't anything out there for that's tackling men who are going through domestic violence. So that's really an important topic, and you know, I don't know. Is that something you've got any experience or knowledge of?
I have, and the spectrum of it is huge. Like, I've seen cases in the past where, even in, let's just say, female lady I met once, and she said she was going through domestic violence, and I said, "Oh, what kind?" Because you have to ask these questions. And she says, "Financial." So, you know, you'd think to yourself, "Oh, yeah, he's just taking your money, he's taking your card, he's taking cash out of your can or whatever he's doing, and he's just sponging off you." But when she explained it to me, and I thought to myself, wow, like when your pay slips come in, you have to show him how much you got for that month. When your bank statement, he wants to see it, to see what you spent your money on and how much you have to give to him. Like, it's way deeper than you think of someone just nicking your card, innit? They're watching you. Like, if you bought a bottle of milk, why did you not buy the smaller bottle of milk? Or you bought yourself I don't know, items a female requires, such as hygiene and stuff. Why did you buy that? Like, then it gets really deep. You start thinking to yourself, wow, like, I didn't even think it could happen like that, but it can. It can get really, really deep, but you don't see it as deep. And in terms of like male domestic violence, it's very rare you'd see anyone come forward, but when they do, you find yourself asking questions in your own head when you're speaking to them, like, "Oh, how does that happen?" And, you know, is your missus built like Mike Tyson? Like, what is going on here? Like,
That's
know,
what I'm thinking.
You're a dude, like, what, you know, karate? Like, you know, you start asking these silly questions. It can happen. You know, it can happen to anything, can happen to anyone. You know, you might be raised not to hit a woman, and she might be raised to give you a beating, innit? It's not a problem for her. But then, you find yourself asking questions. Well, if a girl hit me, what would I do? Or, do you know what I mean? Like, the question keeps on becoming to yourself. Like, when you're asking them, half the conversation is in your own head about, well, I wouldn't put up with that. Well, that doesn't make sense.
Has equal right apply at that time?
That's what I mean.
No,
Yeah.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
How do you believe it? And how do you believe it? Like, is he singing this story to gain something out of me? You know? Because you hear the weirdest lies for people to gain something. Like, example, if I worked in housing, if somebody wants to make an application, they'll say anything. They'll say they've been domestic violence, gay, attacked because of religion, race, everything, the hair color. You know, everyone's got medication. Everyone will say anything. So again, it's even harder to believe when it's a man. But if a woman comes to you and she cries and she says, you know what, I've been getting beat every week. I don't know about most people, but you start believing it. You're like, you know what, I think this is real. But when a man comes to you, you're like, really, bro?
So you've actually heard of cases
Many
where
times.
men are getting battered?
But a lot less than what women. Like, women, it's very regular, innit?
Yeah, we know about women domestic violence, and you know what, I've witnessed it, like on the streets, and we mentioned it before, right? And it's crazy, like, but for me, I must have heard about one or two cases, but they were like, we didn't go deep into it. We just laughed it off or just think it. But is it a real thing? Does it actually exist? Like, how does a man get beaten up by his wife? Like, I just can't
It's very
comprehend
rare.
it.
It's very rare, but I think the situation would have to be the woman would have to be extremely aggressive and violent, and the guy would have to be submissive. It has to be that way.
You know, when you talk about, you know, a lot of time when you talk about domestic violence and on those kind of things, you talk about people who've got narcissistic traits, narcissism.
Yeah.
You know, and that control and that dominance and all of those things come into play. Like, you were talking about the other day in the street. I actually saw something as well on the street as well the other day. Husband and wife, and basically having an argument. Obviously, some sort of domestic base on the road, yeah. And all she's doing is kicking him, punching him, and he's big, much bigger than her. If he just kind of just touched her, she'll probably go flying.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that. But he kept on taking it, moving back, and then it just makes you think, like, okay, is that acceptable? You know, is that really acceptable that a woman can get away with just slapping, kicking? I was thinking more about, hang on a minute, there's a relationship here of husband and wife. Where's the respect? You know, like raising a hand should never happen either way.
She probably knows he'll never tell a soul, because how are you gonna go tell your friends, your boys, oh, you know what, my wife just punched me in the face today? Like, you're not gonna do it. Or as you get that black eye, mate, I fell down the stairs. You know, you're not gonna say, oh, you know what, she gave me 2 good shots, you know, today in the morning. Like, I forgot to put the toilet seat down. She went ham. Like, you can't say any of these things. It's impossible. You're not gonna tell your family. You're not gonna tell your mom. But you're invested in this relationship. You've got kids.
So you're basically saying that man is bottling it up.
He has to.
He has to.
Because in the community, even if you look deeper into it, you look at the general spectrum, and in every let's say cultural group, not just ours, it's looked at as a sign upon as weakness.
Yeah.
Even if you were English, or if you were from anywhere in Africa, or if you were anywhere from Asia, and you went home and you told, I don't know, your brother, your dad, oh, you know what, my missus just busted me, they're gonna laugh at you, man. They're gonna look at you and think, you're right. You know, you sure? It's true though.
Yeah, one of the cases that came to me was, again, a very big brother, physically in size, but his wife used to do different levels of abuse. So one's the physical abuse. So when she lost it, pots and pans, she was smashing him with it.
Oh, wow.
So it's going there and he's taking it. And what it is, sometimes, you know, there's a persona, you're a big guy, you're strong. But big guys can be gentle people as well. You know, you like to
course, yeah.
It's not the case just because you're big, you're tough. There's some soft, you know, people out there. And sometimes what's happened is even their own experiences in life has made them quite quiet, a recluse, maybe a bit withdrawn. And then you've got another individual who's got a narcissist kind of tendencies and traits, then that's a recipe for disaster. And then there's emotional abuse that is used, there's blackmail, there's other things that are then used, and then that person becomes trapped. And like you said, society doesn't help, because how does a man go out and say, I'm getting beat?
Also some guys, I find it. I like to give names to theories I just make up. I call it the Smeagol theory. So some brothers will meet a girl and they'll be like, "Oh my God, this is the best looking girl I've ever seen in my life." And when I walk around the street, everyone's like, "Wow, how did you get that girl?" And my friends and my colleagues see her, they're like, "Wow, 'cause you're not the best looking fella, but she's like a supermodel." Smeagol and the Ring, yeah. Because she's so, you know, pretty in society, or everyone's looking at her like, "Oh my God, like, you know, how'd
She
you
has
bag
that power.
Yeah, I've had friends that walk down with girls and they're like, "Oh my God, how'd you get that? Look at you." Not in a bad way, but you know,
Yeah,
you caught it,
you're
yeah.
punching. You done well.
So if she does do things to him, like to violate him physically, mentally, he'll take it, because he'll be like, "Oh my God, if I let this one go, you know, I'm not gonna get this ever again."
Spot on.
Yeah, they're gonna feel, "Oh, I'm never gonna get that
So
again."
it doesn't necessarily have to be domestic violence. It could be abuse.
Yeah.
It could be like mentally torturing the person.
Isn't DV also classed as part of those other areas of abuse as well, not just the
Yeah,
physical?
it is.
It's just the emotional and the financial, and then the psychological, and there's
Yeah,
a
all of
few
that.
characteristics.
All of that is within the spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what it is. All of that falls underneath DV. But the way I see it is, the reason why people don't speak up and people are taking it is because you know, they just can't speak out. You know, like, you know, women, you know, you got this whole thing of like battered woman syndrome. You know, they got beaten up so much, they get made to say it's your fault for making me angry, and they get stuck in that loop where there's dependency. There's so many other things. They keep on coming back. You know, so they find it very hard to sometimes break out of that. But there's been so much work done over the years, where then you had Refuge Start and all the other kind of
You
safety.
get a lot of refugees, but it's for women
Yeah,
mainly.
so
there's
for
not-
women. So all of
yeah.
those things created it to make it easier, or, you know, it's still not easy, but it's still, meaning than before, it's easier for women now, once they're going through that difficulty, to be able to get some safe haven and refuge away from this, and find a means and support to get out of it. Unfortunately, nothing like that exists for a man.
No, it doesn't.
And on top of that, if a woman was to get beaten, she isn't frowned upon. In a society, you're going to say, okay, right, the
Oh, they're not
sympathy,
gonna- yeah,
the
they're not
sympathy
gonna
towards
think,
her. The
They're
sympathy
just gonna
towards
think you're
her.
a woman.
But
yeah.
for a man, straight away, you know, like you said, anybody, you know, I was speaking to some brothers before about this, they're like, really? How can a man,
Yeah.
you know, like all the questions you said that pop into your head, they come in.
Yeah.
So you can't really, you know, where does a man go?
They start judging your character. They're like, "I saw you go gym 5 times a week. I saw you did kickboxing for about 3 years."
It's like, what kind of man are you?
That's it,
You know,
you
that
know what
kind
I
of
mean?
thing. Those kind of questions your man.
You know,
Can
how
we not see it? I would see it in a different angle. I'll say, what a patient, what a good man.
Most people wouldn't see like that.
Like, I genuinely would. I would be like, wow. Like, I know sisters that are skits, like crazy, yeah, and what they do to their husband are seriously full on torture. Do you get it? To a point where these brothers can't even get out without their wives knowing that every step they take, even to a point they'll call their friends to make sure, or, you know.
That, I think, relates to leverage and what you allow. Because you got to
Okay.
remember, there's two things. Let's give you an example, yeah? What you allow. So today, I said to you, I don't know, let's just say you're in a marriage and your partner says to you, "Oh, call me before you come home." We're like, "Why? I'm coming home anyway. Just do it." You did it. Second day, "Call me before you come home." Why? I did it yesterday. Just do it. After a few times, you're programmed. You're not going to ask no more. You're just going to do it because now you're programmed. It's like simple as when you see a dog get a treat to jump. He's been programmed. And it can happen to human beings too, you know. And you become programmed to take certain behaviors, and that's just what it is. And, you know, when your friend or someone external the situation, they'll be like, "Oh, how can you allow that?" Well, it's been happening for years. oh, it's just what it is. It's just how it is. You've been programmed now, and you're not thinking it's weird. You're not thinking it's different. Your friends looking at you like, oh mate, really? Or the second issue you get a lot. You get a lot of this is leverage.
Okay.
Leverage, I'm going to tell you right now, is the biggest one, because once a lot of my people I know of, let's just say that they've had children, that's it. The tide has turned. She's like, oh, we've had an argument. I'm going to my mom's, and you know, if you start kicking up a fuss saying, oh no, you can't do that. You know, well, if you get separated, you ain't gonna get to see the kids. And I know a lot of guys that, let's just say before marriage, or you'd think they're the most alpha male of all. Like, they're known in their groups, areas, everywhere for being the most alpha male guy, but he crumbles. And I don't understand why, because obviously I don't have children, but I know a lot of people, 90% of people I talk to, they're like, yeah, I'll fold. And I don't know how, but it's true.
I read this article today about children. I know we're diverting a bit. Who are the most important people in your life? Did you read that?
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's so crazy.
It's an interesting point because it's a psychologist, a psychiatrist, I can't remember.
What did they say?
He was pointing out the point, which is, when you ask parents, who's the most important in the family? You know, a good mum and dad would say, oh, my children are the most important thing. And then he says, but is that really true? You know, really, are they the most important? And he says, if you look at it, if you look at where they've come from a marriage. Yeah, they've come from, the importance was you and your relationship, in the mum and dad here. And a byproduct of that marriage, of that relationship, of that importance is the children.
Yes.
Yeah. And he's just basically talking about how, because everything's flipped upside down, we're creating entitled children. Yeah. Whereas before, what happened was children knew that the most important people in the family are the parents. And so there was respect there. But the dynamics have flipped now, because when you make the children the most important thing, you are the sunshine, you are the whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then what's happening, you create this entitled children. I've got rights, I've got this, I've got wants.
Yeah.
You need to provide for me. Whereas no, the other way around is actually, he's talking about parents are the most important in the family, and the children aren't. But it doesn't mean they're neglecting them. But it's about knowing the right place in the family.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting perspective. It also ties in with some bits about, while you do give respect to children, and while you do kind of look after them, all of those things, the hadith and the ayat talk about the respect towards the parents and the honouring of the parents and all of those things. So it is true, within the relationship, we look at it, who's the man of the house? It's the dad. Suddenly when you make it known the children are the most important thing, no. But then again, there's always a little pinch. So I wouldn't ever say, I am the most important thing in this family. But it needs to be understood that there's a hierarchy within the family.
I think a lot of the times it's the dad until a certain point. A lot of the times it's the dad until
Culturally,
the
it
older
was.
son would then start taking over the house, and do you know what I mean? Like,
Leading the way.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Previous generations were like that, but now we're moving into these new generations where you've got kids who are millennials and things are flipped upside down.
I think the generation before myself, I'd say, like even my oldest brother or someone, I feel like they had it a lot harder in terms of growing up a lot younger, where I must have got away with it a lot more and got mollycoddled to a certain age. They didn't get that. Like, grow up quick.
Okay, now that we've kind of the article that I believe in it, I've been believing in it for years. Like, why are kids so important to a point where they become masters? And I've always said, like, we need to go back to how it was, where the kids need to understand how important the parents are. And obviously the kids are important, but not where it comes to a point they become priority to everything. I don't know if I'm saying it wrong or right, but that's how I think. So I just want to like remind brothers, or bring that topic up of, first thing first, can children be used as blackmail? Does that fall under DV?
Well, that's a byproduct of the DV, isn't it? Because here you're talking about...
You couldn't prove it.
Yeah. But it's used, it's leverage, isn't it?
Yeah, it's leverage. You couldn't prove it.
And then what happens is, if you do then go into the courts, it ties in with what I said right at the beginning. You've got parents coming forward saying, I'm being alienated from my kids. And some fall in because of this reasoning. Others, obviously, this parental alienation comes about because of just a toxic marriage, a spiteful breakup.
Do you know the strangest thing I find out about like this topic? how the victim protects the perpetrator. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I'll give you an example. I've seen a situation once years ago where a guy was attacking his partner. And I was like, oh, that's wrong. And then somebody intervened. And they're like, oh, don't do that. That could be somebody's daughter or somebody's, sister. Don't do that. And he's like, oh, he's giving it. And then the other guy starts, giving it to him, attacking him, because obviously he's giving him the aggression now. And he's not succeeding in this situation. Obviously, he was beating a woman before. It's a big difference. But then the woman's immediately jumped on top of the attacker, and he's like, oh, don't, please, please.
I've seen that.
Yeah, a million times.
Yeah.
And then when the police turn up, she said, oh, he's beating up my fella. So I'm like, what do you do in these circumstances? Do you even help people?
I've seen that many times.
What are you meant to do? Are you meant to help? Because you're programmed, like, psychologically, most people are, to protect a woman, innit? Like, if you see if you're in a crowd and you see a woman getting beaten up by a guy, you think it's unfair. How can that happen? And let me intervene. But then afterwards, what if she turns and says, you know what? It was you. You beat up my fella.
The issue that you tend to get from that, when women flip it and they, like I said, or they support and they protect the aggressor.
Yeah.
A lot of that is because, again, we've gone back before, they're trapped. And they're always made to feel it's their fault. Because that's what happens. One of the classic things about DV is, the man gets angry, for example, in the case. He gets angry, beats somebody, he goes, see, why'd you make me angry? You knew if you make me angry, this is what's going to happen. So the ladies made you feel, oh, it's my fault, man. Why did I trigger you?
Yeah.
And so they're always made to feel like it's their fault. They triggered. Or, I told you I hate this food. Or I told you, you can't make this food like this and it's disgusting. Why'd you do that for? So again, it's her fault. She didn't cook the food right. She didn't do this right. She didn't put the kids to bed. She didn't, whatever it may be, one thing after another. All of those things happen. And so women end up feeling trapped. And like I said, when kids are there, you're more trapped. Because why? Especially a lot of the times when DV comes in, you tend to find it, the woman's isolated, like I said, whether it's financially, she may not even be working. So then she's really dependent on her husband. And then that's it, she's trapped. And so it's very, very difficult sometimes. That's why what happens is, they'll protect them. They'll protect them because, they're made to feel like, no, you need me, you can't live without me.
Leverage changes people. Because you start thinking different. Because let's just say you and me, for instance, and you've lost your, job, you have no income, I'm supporting you, I'm your friend. I'm going to have an idea in my head, it's going to cross my mind that, this guy needs me. And even if I chat shit to him, he probably won't say nothing. I might not do it, but the thought will cross my mind. And I'm sure it'll probably cross yours too, if it was the vice versa. People can't help but think like that sometimes.
Okay, so
But I would say that's a narcissistic mindset.
It is, but it will run through everyone's mind. Acting on it is the narcissistic trait, I'd say. Acting on these kind of thoughts is obviously, I'm going to do it to you. But just thinking it sometimes, it's not, I wouldn't say it's narcissistic, but it crosses your mind. All thoughts cross people's mind. It's what they act on. It defines who they are.
I disagree to an extent. I don't think all thoughts will cross. I think thoughts that cross the mind is based on the person's personality.
You'd say, like, even any situation, a negative thought would never cross your mind.
No, I'm not saying negative thoughts don't. Meaning, like, in life, there's so many thoughts you could have, isn't it? The spectrum is wide, yeah? So I couldn't say that every thought will ever go through everybody's mind. Some thoughts will go through somebody, but a lot of it is based on the person's character, their upbringing, how they are, and how they perceive and they view world life. So will a thought cross their, mind? So, for example, sometimes people can get the thoughts where, for example, let's talk about Islam. We talked about before with doubts. People have doubts about deen. Now, that can be more prominent in people who have had a certain upbringing and less prominent in others, or even non-existent, because why? From a young age, it's being very firm and strong.
Yeah.
So the thought actually never does, or if the question ever arises, boom, it's knocked out.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even enter. So that's why I would say that I see what you mean, but I feel that not every thought would always go through everybody's mind, because a lot of it is to do with your upbringing.
It's your programming,
It's how you program. So yes, I can see that that can be a thought that goes through your mind. Like
I'm not saying with me and Nur, I'm gonna abuse him because I pay for him. I'm just saying in the sense of I can see it happen. I can see it happen to people in relationships. She's lost her job. I'm paying for everything. Oh, you know what? She's doing my nutting.
Is this the case? Is this the case where they are incompatible.
People don't think about that though. Let's just say, you know how he said earlier on, you made me do this, yeah, and that's a personality trait of theirs. I don't know. They're outgoing too much. They like wearing short skirts. Not a problem. That's their what they want to do. But if you knew that at the beginning, and now you've got with a person, and instead of thinking, oh, you know what, we're not compatible, let's leave it, let's keep it moving, you're like, well, I'm gonna beat this out of you. I'm gonna change you, and that's all I need to do. I just need to change you, and if it involves getting to that extreme, that's what it is. People are not sometimes ready to say, you know what, bon voyage, this ain't meant to be.
Okay. Let's forget about violence for a second. Yeah. Where I want to take this is, I want to understand brothers suffering in silence, brothers not able to talk, solutions and scenarios. I think this is a very interesting topic. I genuinely think brothers are going through madness in their lives, and they're just not able to talk about it. They don't understand, or probably like for me, for example, like I'm listening to all this stuff and I'm like thinking, is this DV? I didn't know. This is normal stuff, man. Do you get it? Like this, like someone might saying to you, oh, you don't support me financially, or you're not a real man, and stuff like that. Like, and these kind of things like really get to a guy. Low esteem, is that bullying? So like, first thing first, let's put this out to you guys, right? How do you identify something is wrong? What do you do next? Do you speak out? Do you like try to solve it by biting the bullet, or do you speak to the person or seek external help? And then when you say leverage and stuff like that, you fall into that trap. How do you get out of it? So let's start with identifying that you're in a DV situation.
You know what? I think that's a very tricky one, because first you have to identify the brackets that you're in. Is it physical? Is it financial? And is it mental?
No, let's do mental.
Let's say mental.
Physically is very obvious.
And then financial.
Financial is obviously obvious. Do you get it? Like some brothers, like I usually tend to see sisters are more okay financially.
Would you say financial? Again, I don't know what the parameters. I'm not speaking as somebody who knows or has any experience in terms of DV and its parameters and what is DV, what is not. But would DV fall, for example, where a woman is high maintenance, example, yeah? Yeah, and so the man's now expected to work, do extra work and more work to maintain her lifestyle. Would that fall under?
Yeah, but so that's only how long can you even maintain that? And secondly, again, did you know what you're getting yourself into? Was this person this way when you met them, or did afterwards they're like, you know what, I need Gucci shoes every day or something like that? I don't know. Like, that's what it matters, isn't it? Because before and after is a big thing.
Yeah. So okay, let's just imagine that you didn't know or you did know. I don't think it makes any difference. You're in that situation.
You can't maintain that situation for too long.
So does that count as like you're does it fall under abuse?
It falls under abuse if there's consequences to them terms, and negative consequences in terms of your mental health. If they're saying, oh, if you don't do this, I'm going to do this. Or if you don't do this. If they say, oh, if you don't do this, I'm going to leave you. I don't know if you can count that as domestic violence, because they've asked to leave the situation because you can't provide what they want. Would you say I'm wrong?
Oh, again, yeah, I don't know. Probably. It's like, I really don't know. That's the thing. These bits are very, very tricky for me. The thing is identifying what is actually the issue. The way I've always understood it is, if you're in a situation in a marriage where you're put in an uncomfortable situation, yeah, something which because usually when the marriage is two individuals that's coming together, there will be give and take, but there's compromise and there's working together to come up with solutions, isn't it? Whenever it's a case where one side is always winning and another side is always losing, then I'll say these are red flags. Now, it may not be necessarily DV, but it could be a road towards something DV or something even worse, like a marriage breakdown and toxic.
Sure.
It should never be the case where there's always one side winning and another side is always losing or compromising.
I'd like to ask a question. What do you lot think, if, let's just say you got married and your partner said, I don't really want you going out with your friends and I don't want you to go holiday with your friends. What would you categorize that as? Is that...
Look,
what is that?
That, I would say the request is one thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Then it means you working out a solution. If you can't come to solutions,
It's period. She don't want it.
so then that's a different story. The thing is, it should always be a marriage has to be where you're coming to a compromise, working out a solution where it's a win-win. If you don't do that, and constantly it's always one side getting what they want, the other side getting nothing, then that's not a marriage. That shouldn't be. That can't exist. It's not going to work. Now that is only a recipe to lead towards DV, because I can't say that is or not. Again, I don't know. All I can say is these are red flags.
It's definitely a red flag, but I'm just thinking historically, and that's the best way we can move forward from this conversation, right? Historically, Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, was he at home all the time?
Of course, it wasn't. No.
Was he with his companions? Did he make time for everyone? Was he able to see his companions, yet make time for his family? And I go back to that thing that I've been taught. When a baby cries, it looks for his mum for moral support or anything. When the wife is going through some things, they usually look for husbands. In some cases, it might be the husband that's the problem, but usually it's the husband, right? For support in any other way. But when a man is going through situations, he doesn't usually show his weakness towards his wife, but he talks to her, obviously, but he won't go like, oh, I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with that. No. He just needs a companion. He needs his friends. And usually you will see men talking to their friends, but not about the situation they're in, but some do. But just like have a laugh, have a little light conversation and just move away from the scenario, become stressless, like the anxiety level going down and stuff like that. But I just think like nowadays, brothers don't understand that. Brothers speak about everything to their wives. Yeah. And people out there might say, what's wrong with that? Certain things you just don't need to bring your wife into. Like financial, like certain things like, or making, I don't know. Like I just think like you don't have to tell your wife everything. Some things that you're dealing with your brothers, for example, yeah, or your mom says something to you, something private about the family, like something historically that's happened, or family secrets. I don't think brothers should discuss that with their wives. I think that should be kept private. Yeah. But nowadays, everything gets told to their wives.
Everything's on the table.
Everything. And I usually see, I've had cases where brother said to me, like, she uses that against me. I go, why did you tell her then? Why didn't you just keep that to yourself? And she blackmails. And it come to a point where when it came to separation, goes, you're not seeing the kids because, your family or so-and-so's like this.
Domestic violence in the family.
Do you get it? Like, it's crazy. And man, like I want to move on to another point later on, but that's this, just to clear this off. Identifying, are we saying that it's very hard? It's very broad.
I'd say one more thing to add to this, and this is very, very important. And this happens to men a lot. Identify if your partner is trying to incite domestic violence or if your partner has mental health issues. Big difference. Identify it, because if that's the case, you need to get them help.
And as soon as you realize that, hang on, she's got a bit of psychotic behavior or something like that, and even like, how do you approach that then? How do you help your wife saying that, you know what, you might have some mental health issues there, or some rukia issues?
Well, mental health there's multiple ways of explaining it. Like, this is what I say to people: when you're born, I don't know, you're a fresh hard drive. There's no information on this. and your parents put this information in you, and you've hit adulthood, and this is the information you're gonna run with. This is your processing unit. I'm not saying your parents are bad, but certain people are not raised in the best way. They've had difficult childhoods. Parents are not great at being parents. You're gonna have issues, and you need to go somewhere to resolve these issues. And your partner sometimes won't be able to sort it out, and other things won't be able to sort out. You need to go seek a professional.
I think a lot of the questions you're asking, what would be the most beneficial is actually having somebody here who's actually in that field of domestic violence who can give that advice and guidance. And I think that's something we do need to bring in. I'm just mindful because sometimes, if we put labels to things or parameters to things and they're not wholly correct, that in itself can be dangerous.
Yeah, 100%.
Hence why,
100%, yeah.
I'd always say, like, my position
It's
would
so
always
broad.
be...
Like,
it
you
is
can touch on, yeah.
And that's what brings something... As I said, I always say that, generally speaking, in a relationship between husband and wife, there shouldn't always be the case of one side winning, one side losing. Yeah. Now, sometimes you come to a compromise. In the compromise, okay, fine, you can have your way. I don't mind. So somebody's maybe won, another one person lost, but it's done in an amicable way. But when there's a constant thing of somebody always winning, somebody losing, and there isn't a compromise, there isn't coming to a middle ground, or where you can't actually discuss and come to a compromise, because that's what it always is. It has to be. I say that in everything. I say even your relationship with the children, make it win-win. So what happens is you compromise in the sense that you still get your way of what you wanted, but your kid feels that he's got to win. You'll always find they're more receptive towards that. Same thing with husband and wife. As long as you come to a position, it's with everything, in business, in life. You never want to be in a position where you're going to a negotiation for some business transaction and one side feels like they're a loser.
Yeah,
You want to make it like, no, you've won, I've also won. Yeah, let's go. That's how you get to agreements. So they become really important. And if the case is you're always having to concede and you're always losing, then it's a red flag. And this is where you do need to get specialist support and help and reach out. And there are out there, there are some of the positions.
Would you say what you just said, where one side loses, that person is not seeing the relationship as one team and they're just seeing it as A and B?
Yeah, it's just probably is a case of my way or the highway. And when the person's always winning, this is where the narcissism kicks in, which is that I always have to have it my way, and it's not seen as a relationship. It's not seen as a, 'cause that's what it is. It's you're a team, isn't it? You have to perform together, work together. And then the worst part is in that situation, that relationship, if now children start coming, it's a recipe for disaster. So that's why it's always, I would say, if you're in those situations, if red flags come in, you need to reach out, and it's something we probably put in the description below, some links to, in the video, some links to other kind of services and providers that do provide support in around DV. So if anybody is suffering, they can follow those links. By all means, I don't think any of us here are experts on DV, but it's just...
I've had training in it, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert.
Yeah, so it's just the case, I'm very mindful, because I always do that, even when it comes to parenting. People start asking medical questions. I can give you some insight of how I did things with my kids, but I would never do that. Because, if you need medical advice, go to a medical practitioner.
Yeah.
If
Okay,
you-
I get what you're saying. In terms of like solutions and advice, we really need expert opinions in this year. I was just opening it up to a point where like layman brothers like ourselves, like to actually like to identify at least, to actually think like, hang on, do you know what? Enough's enough. I'm gonna deal with it. And when I say deal with it, I mean like seek help. Yeah. Whichever way, or actually speak to someone. And I think that brothers just don't speak to anyone. And you see behind, like, I've noticed that there will like group of us, and then a brother's going through something, and then he just picks on someone else, and he just continuously picking on him, and you're just thinking like, okay. And I observe this kind of stuff, right? And I'm not thinking. Later on, I'm like, "Are you alright?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm cool." I go, "Are you sure?" Deep dive, you realize that, hang on, he just had an issue at home or whatever, etc. And you're like thinking, and that was his escape route, taking it out on someone else. And then I realized that other day I spoke to someone very badly, very, very badly. And I felt so bad. I went home and I felt, why did I speak to him so bad? And I go, nothing triggered me. I was just thinking like, and hang on, I spoke to him like this and he said nothing back to me. And I felt so bad. I was like thinking, you know what? Yo, I'm sorry, man. And he goes, for what? For the way I spoke to you. That's not right. He goes to me, are you okay? And I go to him, I was thinking, I was like, am I thinking about anything? Am I stressed out? Am I anxious about something? I wasn't. I just, he just triggered me. Because like, he something so simple to me seemed so complicated to him. And I just felt like, bruh, what's wrong with you? Do you get it? And then I said to him, hang on, why did you take it? He goes, nah, I just thought you're probably going through something. And I just realized, afterwards I said to him, do you know what? It's because your wife treats you like that.
Oh wow.
I go, and that's why you took it. Because you're so used to getting battered, like spoken rudely like this.
How did he react to that?
And he goes, yeah, you're right. But this is ex-wife.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He goes, that's why you took it. Because I know about his past relationship and he used to get bullied a lot, even in front of me. I remember I heard her saying something like, teach your friend this, blah, blah, blah.
Oh wow.
Your friend's like, and I was like thinking, don't talk to me about it. He's your husband. You get me? Like, why are you telling me? I'm just the third person.
What do you do in that circumstance where she's emasculating him in front of you and then getting at you to see if you respond to her to see what he does? Nothing.
I don't know. These are scenarios that I can't.
The scenario you're in, what did you do? Nothing.
Yeah, no. At that particular moment, I made excuses for him. Do you get it? I defended him because I just thought, hang on, why are you not defending yourself? And then maybe he was like, look, maybe I don't want to like have an argument with my wife in front of you.
Yeah.
But I was shocked. I was absolutely like, what? Boy, you ain't talking to me like that. Do you get me?
Yeah.
But then I thought, hang on, let's not say anything because they might have a problem afterwards. She even said to him, you should be more like him. Another time she goes, you should be like him. And I said to him, that would kill me to be compared to some next man. Do you get it?
Yeah.
And I just said, what do you mean? Like, he is 100 times better than me. Do you know what this brother does? Do you know the amount of things that I even said it? Like I said, do you actually know what he does behind closed doors? Do you know how highly he speaks of you?
Yeah.
Do you get it? And she goes, what? And I was like thinking, I said, nah, man, you don't know what you've got. He's such a funny guy. She goes, he's boring. I go, he's boring. He's one of the funniest guys in our group. He goes, but he never shows it. I go, probably because you shut him up. Before he can even open his mouth, you're probably like, yeah, I've heard it. Same jokes. And that's the case usually. Do you get it? Because they just close him. Do you get it? Before they could even make something funny or do something funny, they just shut him down. But obviously for me, it was like, that's because your wife treats you like that. That's why you're so used to it. And he goes, yeah. I said, bro, man, like when you like not grow, be a man or nothing like that. I just said to him, like, have confidence in yourself, man. Do you get it?
Would you say he has fault in terms of just eating it up?
He 100%.
Yeah.
And that is what I'm getting at. Where what would you brothers advise? Not advice, but like in this scenario, what would you say? Like, is communication the key point here?
You know, when you said it is his fault, would the same thing be said to a woman if she was in that position?
No. You'll automatically feel like, oh, she's vulnerable.
But it takes two, innit? One has to give it, someone has to take it. It always takes two.
Yeah, I know, but it's weird, isn't it?
but
We
you
are
never
so
say-
programmed. Like, it's like, for example, when a man sees so many different girls in his lifetime, we're like, oh, what a G. And when a woman is with many men in her past or whatever, and then we just say, oh, we call her names. Where I'm getting at, it's just stuck in our head. We can't unprogram ourselves on that statement. Like, we automatically think.
There is a theory about that, though. I
Go
don't know
on.
if I should dip into it. Where with a man, it's looked at psychologically. He has to obtain the female. He has to impress the female. And he has, in most situations, I'm saying, and he's then earned the female. Where in the other situation is the woman doesn't really need to earn the male. Most circumstances wouldn't happen. So when they say, oh, a man is praised for it, they're more trying to say that he's praised because he can obtain all these females when he's in a social situation where the females are not forthcoming, but it's not the same the other way around. Just, to give it context.
Yeah, but I genuinely think that's wrong, though, isn't it?
It is wrong.
We all
It's
agree
wrong.
to that.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's 100% wrong.
but in the same way, like right when a woman gets beaten up, we're like, oh, who's this guy? Let's expose him or let's hit him or whatever. But when a woman does it, like when a man is suffering because of this kind of stuff, we just brush it under the table. In fact, we go calling names to that guy.
Yeah, like,
You know, the issue that overarching issue that we're facing with all of these cases, whether it's male or female, whoever's the perpetrator of domestic violence, it's a manifestation of the issues that we've got in wider society. So you're talking about the increase in the self, the importance of me, the individualism, that I'm entitled to everything. All of these kind of rhetoric that's around in society that's built and shaping individuals all around me, myself, and I. So then when now what's happening is it's actually causing people to have unstable kind of marriages and relationship because there's two individuals coming together. Or sometimes if that person's really dominant, you've got a dominant one and a more, a quieter person. So then it's a recipe for abuse in that situation.
I think that's true. At the same time, again, it goes back to what I mentioned about programming. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 80 or 90% of certain people that, perpetrate these kind of activities have seen it in their childhood. Their parents have done it, or they've seen their father do it to their mother. And they've
In the
justified
case
it.
of the guy who's the bully, he used to be bullied before, that kind of thing.
Kind of thing, yeah.
Or the one who's
Because I've seen it hundreds of times. I've heard it hundreds of times. Oh, my dad busted my mum. Do you know what I mean? I'm not justifying it, but I'm just saying these people will justify it in them terms.
No,
They're not seeing it as such a bad thing as you and me would see it.
it happens where I know within parenting I can say that what happens is it's learned behavior, and so we by default end up parenting the way we were parented. So if we got licks, and we give that out to our kids,
And you're desensitized.
So all of those things happen. So in order to change that, you need to pause, reflect, change it up again, and actually, make sense of what happened in your childhood and not to repeat that. The same thing happens with marriages as well. It is true that, if you're growing up in a marriage, and that's why we say that there's such an important impact, the role, for example, a father plays. Because I was just talking about the other day on TV, but the father, the role the father plays is really important, for example, towards a girl. He's the first male kind of figure in her life, and the long-lasting one that she'll have, and she shapes her worldview of men based around that of her father. So if she sees that her
100%.
father is an abusive person, and all men are abusive, and she starts following the path of getting into relationships and marriages with abusive men.
100%.
Yeah. So these are the trajectories that take place with that. And same thing, boys grow up seeing, that's the woman's place, and that's how you treat the woman.
100%.
And then it creates this. So that's why it's really important to break that cycle, and then how we are. It's sad. A lot of people, especially when you talk about men perpetrating domestic violence against women, a lot of it's used, or even Islamic kind of reasonings used to say it's perfectly fine to do so. But again, this is very flawed.
Do you think
well.
this is the very reason why I've seen it mainly in fathers heavily invested in children in this generation?
So say that again. So reword that again.
Because of what they've seen with their parents
Yeah.
and the program they've used to accustomed to, right? And they want to make that change.
Yes.
100%.
And because they want to make that change, they realize that even Islamic influence they're having, or may not have the Islamic influence, but and with this feminism on the rise, and it has impact in everything that the guy does. The guy is heavily involved in the child's development, and in order doing that, they make the children so important, where they become masters. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's different extremes. One is where we talk about the father's absent, not there. And obviously, I advocate for fathers to be involved, to be engaged in all of those things. But yes, you can go further and you get into something called enmeshed parenting, where basically it's two intertangled up together. And this is where, like I said, the children become and treated almost like um, uh, best friends of the parents. And so this is where the dynamic changes. You are not the best friend of your child. Yeah. You want to have a good relationship with the child. The child is open, like how they would do with a friend. But the relationship is not that of a friend. And that's an important thing to happen. So it does happen when in those relationships, it goes into that, it becomes too indulgent, too enmeshed. And then what happens is, yes, you can create children who become entitled children, what we talk about today. The entitled children is where the child is at the master and expecting.
Is that when the boundaries are broken? And I see on TV, like, you get these kids telling their parents to shut up. And then in your own head, you're like, oh my God, my dad or my mum would, give me a few licks if I ever said that. But these kids just say it full pelt.
Yeah, that comes about
Yeah.
as a product of this and of other issues as well, which is basically, they've just basically neglected the children as well.
Yeah.
So there's two on the extreme side, which is one, you're too indulgent. The other one is due to neglect. If you raise a child who's like, just sticking two fingers up at you kind of thing, towards the parents, because you've created that environment,
How
no
do you
morals
find
or
the
manners.
perfect balance?
The balance is that, we talk about parenting styles, there's parenting styles. So what you work towards is that of an authoritative parent, which is the balance of, love and warmth that you give to a child. At the same time, that is counterbalanced with the firmness. Now, what happens in parenting, you've got parents, what we've grown up with generally is our fathers especially tend to be authoritarian, which means that the warmth isn't there, the love isn't expressed, but the rules are there. Yeah, and so we are growing up, getting beats, making sure we follow the rules and all of those things. But what happens is that the warmth and love is missing, and that has an impact into adulthood. And you see a lot of kids who are going through adults going through emotional instability, depression, and other things because of those things. And then the other side is where you show so much love, but you've got no firmness. So it becomes your best friend. No rules, no nothing. And then kids can almost dictate that. And then you've got neglect, which is basically you don't do nothing.
Don't do nothing.
But the one you're trying to hit the balance of is basically bringing those things together, which is important because you need to have boundaries. Children need boundaries. But that's with the warmth and love, not just... That's why I said you don't keep on exerting yourself, because as your child grows up, remember the dynamics change. You as a parent, now, when you're raising your child, you have power and control, isn't it? You're the one who dictates everything. Your child is totally dependent on you. But as they're growing out, we have to adjust the relationship, which means giving more space for growth, giving more space for autonomy, and valuing their opinion without necessarily taking away the authority that you have. And as you start doing that. So imagine now, as a child, as a baby, you've got strict rules around your child and how they interact. And you maintain that same boundary when they go into their teens. It's not practical. You have to give that growth and space for them to develop. And that's why when you start having interaction with the children, especially as they get older into the tweens and then into the teens, this is where I talk about, we need to have win-win situations. When you have problems with the children, there's always a solution, and you have to find that solution where it's a compromise, it's a win for him, it's a win for you, and that's how you start going forward, and that builds a relationship. Yeah, and the way we look towards our children, especially when they come to the teens, should be that like an adult, any relationship. It has to be based on respect. Respect is a two-way thing. You give respect, they'll give respect back.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of those things that come together, and that's the balance. But it's important for you to get respect. You need to be around. You need to be present. And also stuff about how you live your life. You can't preach something and live a life completely different to it. A lot of things,
Could you say that we could use that same principle on husbands or wives?
Yes. It's the funniest thing in a lot of the parenting courses, when I started talking about different strategies for children, some of the fathers would turn around and say, oh, that could work with my wife.
100%. I'm just thinking, like...
Don't tell her.
No, but I'm just thinking, hang on, this can be like, because as you go along your marriage, there's a honeymoon period, then you have kids, then you have another, then you think about house. The roles have changed, obviously. Some people think about house before having kids. Some people think about all these other like cars and holidays and all these other priorities take place before even getting married. Nowadays, people think, does this guy have a house? This is what the requirements have come to. But I'm just thinking here, hang on, this whole thing can be used for marriages, as kids start going to school, your wife probably start wanting to work and stuff like that, and there's a balance. Like, yes, believe it or not, and this is going to be a shocking, this is going to be a shocker to you guys, right? Yesterday, I had a conversation with one of the volunteers, and we were saying, like, I was saying, like, why haven't you got married yet? And she's like, situations, blah blah blah, and I don't want to get married no more, and stuff like that. So I literally said, you should get married, and not all men are same, and whatnot, blah blah blah. And the next shocker came here, and I said, she said something along the lines of, like, my mum depends on me.
Yeah.
And I literally said, well, Islamically, you have a duty, right? And even a duty to a point to yourself, you have a duty. And then I said, look, like, why do you, what, you got brothers? He goes, yeah, I totally believe that sisters look after their parents better than the brothers do. Yeah, I'm 100% for that,
I
yeah?
agree with that.
But I think that role has changed. I said the brother should make that a priority, that he's looking after the parents. And I think the interference of sister-in-laws has a big problem. Like, the guy's sisters, they should stop, not come around that often.
I think.
And then that kind of triggered the sisters. Do you get it? Yeah. And I was like thinking, like, look, give them the space. Like, you got your own home. She goes, but then I said, like, I said to her, like, you should get married. She goes, nah, my mom needs me. I said, you need yourself. You don't need to see your mom every time. She goes,
You can be married and still help your mum.
of course, of course. And the next bit shocked me. And I know she said it. She said it as a joke afterwards when I was baffled. She goes, you said you can't see your mom every day. And she goes, who are you to tell me who I can see and not see? I'll divorce you straight away if you said that. And she's not saying it to me directly. She's saying, like, if I got married and they said that, like, well, I can't see my mom every day. I said, no, they're not saying it, but they're saying you don't need to see your mom every day. And she goes, nah, I divorced them. And I was shocked. I go, there you go. I deliberately said, you're not allowed to see your mom every day, or you shouldn't see your mom every day. I just wanted to see your reaction. And your reaction is the society today. And she was like, raw.
Just that thing of individualism that I go back to. No one can dictate to me or say to me what I want. And that goes back to, what Allah mentions, that, have you not seen the one who has taken his nafs, his self, his desire as his God besides Allah? And that's what it is. Society promotes individualism. It promotes that. And because of that, that's what's caused loneliness. Hence why you have a minister in the government for loneliness. Because there's too many people out there who haven't got people. And that links in with when people are going through suffering, abuse and stuff. They've got no one. It's an endless cycle.
Do you not feel sometimes the parent promotes it? Some parents like, don't worry, you don't need to get married. You can just stay at home and,
Some families I know actually benefiting from their kids. They think they'll be in poverty if their kids leave or get married. Especially sisters.
True.
I actually know certain sisters that their family depends on, and even to a point the father was hesitating getting his daughter married because she pays for everything. And I know, I genuinely know this sister. Do you get it? Like, where she was getting married to her brother, but the sister was so, like, heavily involved, and the guy the proposal came through, the guy goes, "Bravo, what is this proposal, man? Like, she pays for everything." And I said to her, like, it'd be me and her in the future. And she goes, "Oh, my parents would suffer." She goes, "That's not my problem." And she goes, "Because of that, I don't want to marry her." And I go, that's going to be a problem for her with anyone. No?
Does she have other siblings?
She has other siblings, but she's the highest earner, and she pays for everything. It's always been like
And
that.
Who would you put that down to? The structure that was created in parents.
100%.
Narcissist parents.
100%. Like, anyway, uh,
I know we've gone around the block quite a lot.
yeah, but it is
Yeah.
crazy. It is crazy. But I think we stuck to the same
Point,
genre
yeah.
anyway. And
No, I think, like I said, it's society is having a massive impact in shaping. You talk about programming, it's shaping how people are being raised, the thought processes, and all of those kind of things, and that is perpetuating the other issues that we're seeing now. So all the other things are just symptoms, the symptoms of the illness in itself, and it just keeps on happening more and more and more. And that's why when you look at it, if you go back, we need to go back. We need to look back at, think, okay, what is our deen? Do we truly, it was in a class earlier today, but it was that same point, which is in the society we live in, what are the beliefs? What are the cultures? What are the traditions? What are the symbols? What are all of those things of our society? And if you look at it now, it's all about the individualism, yeah, which then links to stuff like commercialization and entertainment. It's all about the self, me.
Watch what happens in 20 years. Because you and me might come from the era of the green light phone. You could probably just get a picture of a butterfly. But now, people are ingesting probably, 500 images a day just on their phone. Watch in 20 years.
One last thing that I wanted to add to that conversation about the sister saying, "I'll divorce you."
Okay, yeah.
And then straight away, I was shocked. I was like, this is the society we live in today. For you guys, it's so easy just to not work on things and not have the backbone and always running, go to the extreme point. Do you get it? Before you could even meddle with the little like workarounds.
Negotiation.
Yeah, you just go right to the thing. But you know what the funny thing is? Divorce it, but you can't escape. If it's tick for tack, man's got the upper hand here, right? Islamically, like, I don't say it's upper hand, but there is a reason why men was given that right. But that's where the tick for tack comes in and all that stuff, yeah. And then I explained it. I said, you know what? We need to bring some of our culture back. And it moved to the conversation of living alone and all that stuff, and it got really toxic. And I said, you know what? No man should live by himself with his wife, yeah, until he knows, yeah, that this woman is actually a woman. And she goes, what do you mean by that? And I go to him like, well, if, for example, you're living with your in-laws and this girl's at her mom's 24 hours, you think it's going to get any better when she lives on her own? No, it's just going to get worse. And in fact, it's going to be like you're coming home and you won't find her at home at all. You'll be like, where are you? What are you doing? And this and that. And, it leads to a lot of other things. This is where problem starts. And then, and I said, look, we need to bring our tradition back. Our tradition was when our moms or sisters were to go to their mom's house, they had to seek permission. And they're like, what, bruv, we're in the 21st century. What are you on about? I go to my mom's house. I go, that's the problem. You lot go to your mom's house whenever you like. And she goes, but the problem to that is you never make your home. And by the time you do, you've got about 3-4 kids and it's so late.
What's the balance? Because, like, I wouldn't want to tell my partner or wife, oh, you can't go see your mum. I'd feel a bit bad. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's the mentality that every brother has now. Even myself, I can't say no to my wife going to
See
her
mum,
mum's,
yeah.
and I would never say no. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
But the fact is, like, this society, unfortunately, the sisters are finding their in-laws or their own homes, they're failing to call it home. Do you get it? And that's where it leads to problems where, like, most of the boys that come out, I ask them, where you're at, this and that. He goes, yeah, man, she's going to her mum's. I go, and then, you know what? Every time you see them, you're like, oh, she's at her mum, she's at her mum, she's at her mum. I'm like thinking, is she ever at home? I saw you live in your home. He goes, yeah, bro, I prefer her going than I can come out. That's, you know what I mean? And
yeah, they're just signs that things aren't obviously okay, if you guys say. It's good that she's over there so I can come out. That means there's obviously issues that's already there in itself. And even when you said about asking to go and see the mums and all of those things, like I said, it needs to, you have to come to it's always, it goes back to marriages, coming to a middle ground, coming to an understanding, an agreement that works for all, and it doesn't deprive somebody of something, but it's realistic and pragmatic. And that's the key part. I think that's what's missing.
Yeah, Nuri bhai, I just wanted to add why I said bringing that back, because it would make sense. Because when I explained it to them, to the group afterwards, they're like, "Oh, you know what? It does make sense because look, when Bengalis get married, yeah, they go Firanayor. You go there after you stay at the woman stays at her husband's house for 2 days, and then she goes back to her mum's house for 2 days, and then she comes back, and then after 2 weeks she goes to her mum's house for 2 weeks, and then she comes back.
Oh, is that?
Eh?
Is that how it is?
Yeah, it's like this is how traditionally we do it, yeah. And then when she wants to go back to her mom's Naya or whatever, other the mom requests, because you're giving your daughter away already to the husband, and then she requests, oh, can she come Naya or whatever, etc. And what that does, yeah, it shows respect to the husband. And the husbands shouldn't really say no. Do you get it? But the main thing that's come out of it is the girl makes that home her home, because she's been there long enough. She's making an impact. She's not always at her mom's where she has influence and power. And when she's at her husband's house, slowly, more and more, she'll start making impact in that house.
Yes.
And slowly, by the time you know it, she only goes to her mum's house once a month, not to see her, but to stay. But then it might be like once in a blue moon or summer holidays. Then it becomes a routine. The benefit for that is if there's a brother in that house, he gets married, his wife has that space. When the sister is not going in, and that sister-in-law look after that parents or whatever, or look after the brother. Do you get it? It's like a cycle that we should get into that would solve a lot of this madness, where, the house is congested or bare people come around and stay as they wish and stuff like that. And they were like, okay, now it actually makes sense. People say, I want space. Then your wife, if everyone's wife stayed and made their home and go every so often, then everyone's got a home. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
I didn't get any of it, but yeah, that's fine.
You didn't get it?
That's fine. That's fine.
You got it?
Yeah.
Maybe because you're in a situation, you understand, you got sisters coming up. Because you live on your own, and your mom, obviously, but your sisters and your brothers come every so often, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think I know certain brothers who live with their parents. The sisters are always around. The wife says I want to move out because I could never make this my house.
Earlier on you mentioned that point about where the guy would say his wife's at an hour and that's why you'd only see him out with the boys, yeah? Do you think that he enjoys her being at her mother's and he enjoys seeing the boys so much that it's a treat, and when his wife does return back, he feels like he's going back to school? It's something to think about.
It is. I think that's, again, goes back to signs of issues within the marriage that need to be resolved, because obviously they're there. You talked about solutions, going back and stuff. Like I said, I think, we sometimes get a bit nostalgic, thinking, oh, things were good back before, and if we did these things before, it'd be all okay. But I think sometimes we miss the fact that there's a lot of damage being done with the way things are now. Society is so different than it was before. So going back to some of the old traditions, cultural traditions won't necessarily work. It's the same excuse when somebody says, oh, I grew up, I was treated like this by my dad and stuff, and I turned out fine, so I'm going to do the same thing with my kid. I'll say that doesn't work. You're in a complete different generation, a different time.
Fair enough.
And so, you have
Fair
to
enough.
you have to be adaptive, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
So while there may be some benefits and pros to what you're saying, as a whole, I don't think it's the solution, but there may be benefits that come out from what what you're saying. So you have to kind of be adaptive, and that's why I look at it. And I say, so many issues we've talked about before, where we talked about social media having a massive impact. We talked about the societal issues that's having a massive impact, influencers and other things. All of those things, they're mixed up. Like I said, this society is just in a total mess. And unless you get a grip on it, and that's what happens, that if you are conscious as an individual and you're getting a grip on it, because I have to look at it, okay, we're talking about here a husband and a wife. What about the kids, the next generation that's coming up? Because it's going to be, like you said, 20 years. What's the situation going to be? When the kids grow up, the world's going to be upside down in the society. If it keeps on going down this trend, the way it is,
be with their mum on Mars.
Yeah, you need to get a grip on it. And so, as I said, there's a lot of things that do need to get tackled, and it goes back to our individual mindsets. Now, we can change. We've been programmed in a certain way, but we can change, and it's important we do that. And all of these things are taught within our deen anyway. You look at the examples of how the Prophet ﷺ was and how the companions were in terms of dealing with their marriages and their issues and their disputes, and they're looking at how they then again raised their children and how they made time for everything. These are the examples that's when we say going back to it. We follow those examples adapted to our modern times. Yeah. But that becomes an important thing that we look at.
The thing that annoys me about that, and maybe it's just me that gets annoyed about, there's too many levels now. The spectrum is too big. Where before it's yes and no, and it's yes and no maybe, and it's yes, no, maybe yes, maybe no. There's just so many levels to the spectrum of every subject we spoke about today, where in a simpler time, the options are much fewer and much less. Do you find that?
The more options you have, yes, it causes a massive impact. Having less options, you can only say, it's only one
or
the
other.
I
suppose it's not that simple.
But when you get too many options, you talk about it now. We're spoiled for choice in everything. You talk about the society we're living in. It's all about consumerism. Get the word out. It's spoiled for choice, isn't it? Like you want to buy a phone.
It's everything.
What are you going to need?
Well, you want an iPhone, you want a Samsung,
exactly,
you want a this.
I was talking about it to the kids the other day. It's like, you look at, marketing and stuff. It's designed in such a way when a new product comes out, they sell it in such a way that this is a product that you've never had, you've never needed before in your life. But they're going to sell it to you saying, this is the product you need in your life. And if you don't have it, you're missing out. And that's how it's done.
I find to myself, the more options you have and the less it entertains you now, where, let's just say when I passed my drive and I had a Renault Clio, it's called the Extreme 2, had red seats, just letting you know, it's quite sporty, 1.2, fast as hell. And I loved it because it was the first car I had. I felt amazing. And now at this age where I've got option of buying a Merc or BM or Audi, which I've had all the types, about 30 days, 60 days, I'm like, I don't feel this no more. I think I should get a Merc. Get the Merc, you know what I mean? You're not satisfied for too long.
It is having impact. That has impact on the kids and next generation. You're looking at too much choice. Like you said, everything now. Remember, the way thinking is everything's on demand. Going back, if you're growing up, just say if you had a TV, you had terrestrial TV, which had 4 channels.
I remember that.
You remember? And
Channel 5 was a big hype.
Yeah, I remember when Channel 5 launched.
It was a big hype.
Yeah. So you go back and now everything's on demand. You don't even need TV.
No.
Everything's click of the button. I need to watch. And you binge watch.
Yeah, we got
I don't remember the last time I've watched BBC to Channel 5.
No, I don't watch
because literally
Don't you watch Match of the Day?
BBC iPlayer.
Yeah.
That's online. Do you get it? It's come to a stage where I everything, the choices are crazy. Do you get it? But I think that's related to marriages and people's situations, and because we have too much.
So that's what I say.
Too much options.
It's a society, and sometimes we have to pause, reflect, and be willing to be different. I keep on telling my kids, it's one thing I hate. I said, generally speaking, Allah, you have the masses, which you can refer to as sheep, meaning that they follow the tide. They go wherever the masses are going.
Yeah.
What we need to be is and I want to grow my children, and I always talk about it, is that don't be sheep. You need to be leaders. You need to be innovators in that sense. You need to be paving the way forward, coming up with ideas. Don't be different. So that's
okay,
why.
Nuribai, it's easy for you to say that. What if someone, I believe in it. I don't know why, don't ask me. But growing up, someone said to me, "You're either born a leader or you're born to follow."
I don't always agree
You
with that.
you
can
find,
change.
yeah, you could possibly change. But I remember someone saying it, and a very successful person said it to me. And just said to me, "You're either born to lead or born to follow. You can learn to become a leader over time,
Yes.
but not everyone can do that."
You're talking about
you-
natural dispositions. That's what you're talking about.
Okay.
People have natural disposition. So naturally, somebody when you talk about, when you talk about introverts and extroverts and
Yes.
those kind of things, your natural disposition is something, but you can change. For me, I'm always very, very much when I'm growing up, quite a reserved person. I'm still am, but over time, you culture yourself, you develop yourself to be able to speak, to be able to come forward, to be able to, kind of be more extrovert than
Yeah.
you are. But my natural
He's right.
disposition is
Yeah.
there. So
You
same
can-
thing. You can naturally be somebody who is more comfortable in following, and somebody who naturally. And you see it with the children. I see it. I know which one of my kids are leaders, and I know which ones in school. Boom, they're leaders. Yeah, and I know the ones that are just generally a bit more quieter. They would follow. But that can be a disposition, a natural disposition, your comfortable state. But as you're growing and raising everybody and every individual, they can change, they can develop, and they can grow. And it becomes really important that we do look at that, because the reason why I talk about not being sheep is because I'm trying to raise my children in a different way. Yeah,
Think
and
outside
for
the box.
example, like we talk about phones. Like I said, I say it all the time. They got all the kids. We talked about it before. I know we're going long, but that smartphones. Yeah, we talked about that. My kids don't have it. Yeah,
Give
The
them
old-
a 3310.
I do. They got,
Give
yeah,
them
they
a
got it.
3310.
Yeah, my kids. That's what
the
they
one.
got. Yeah, so the older three who are in the teens in secondary school, that's what they have.
For if you 10.
Yeah.
They could probably give
Yeah.
it to their kids who last
Yeah.
that long.
So so it's the reason why they have that is because, as I said, and I wouldn't have given them that phone. Only the reason why they have it is because their school is down here and I live on IOD, and so the journey time is thing. So if they're coming home, it's like 45 minutes on public transport. So this is the reason why, for safety reasons and communication.
Yeah, I understand.
But naturally, they're in a position where everybody has a phone. Everybody has a smartphone.
On iPhones,
Let's be- yeah.
all of them.
Yeah. So obviously they're going to feel out of place all the time. So we talk about it regularly, constantly, which is that, look, when we deconstruct it. Why does a child need a phone? Why? What do they do on their phone? And when you break it down, they don't need a phone. What are they going to do? They're going to do social media. Yeah. They'll take some pictures and they'll chat with some of their friends who might be on the thing. But you talk about, is this a necessity? Is it a necessity? Is it something? No. If you're looking at adults, for example, we have a phone. There's elements of necessity, isn't it? Because of work, because of some other elements you will have. And then the rest of it is all pleasure and entertainment. Yeah. For kids, they have zero necessity. Unless, like I said, in the situation where, okay, we need to call them. So if they need a phone now to go around, go to their school and back for that purpose, then get them a dumb phone, that suffices. It does the job that's required. Do they need a smartphone? No. So it takes a lot of reinforcement, because obviously children are impacted by society around them and by the trends. I said, look, we're not sheep. We're not going to follow everybody just because they got a phone. Why am I going to get a phone for that? We're not going to just follow people just because they do this, or just because they wear that, just because they behave like this, or these are the trends. No, we're going to be different. And so, yes, in that sense, it's really important, because that's what Islam was. Islam is something strange. It came as something strange, it will leave as something strange. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned the hadith about the ghuraba. It came as something strange, it will leave as something strange, so give glad tidings to the strangers. Islam is not designed to go with the flow. It's got its path. Irrespective of which way society is going, we follow that path. And so those things need to be ingrained. And that's what's happening in society. There's consumerism, there's all of those things. All of these other paths. Yeah, and that's what's causing all of these problems. Once we return back, you see the solutions there.
Alhamdulillah.
And that's the key thing. A lot of it is just
I've-
tapping back to the middle.
I just always feel like everything is very short-lived these days. Everything. Do you know, I have this feeling. I remember years ago, I was a kid, and my oldest brother worked in Tempo. I don't know if you know what Tempo is.
Yeah,
It's gone
yeah,
now,
yeah.
But we had, like, I don't know, these TVs before, and he bought a Sony Trinitron Vega, whatever the hell it was called. It had a big back, but it was the best TV that ever came out. And I remember sitting in the passageway while he's fixing it to put it up, and I was just excited beyond belief that, oh my God, we're getting this TV, this bad boy TV. No one's got this. People don't have this. And I enjoyed it watching it. I enjoyed having it. I enjoyed even telling my mates, oh, check this TV out, man. It's 32-inch. Do you know what I mean? But now, you can get a 75-inch. I'll look at it for 30 seconds. I'll be like, oh, okay, that's nice. It's that short now. That's your happiness. It's that big. It could have been like that, but now it's that.
Well, alhamdulillah, there's been a lot of discussions today. We're hitting a long time.
Yeah. Let's close you off here.
Yeah.
I'm just conscious that it's. And Tariq, I think you've had your face covered throughout though.
That's it. No face, no case. That's it.
Okay, now alhamdulillah. I'll let you close up, Nuri Bhai. I think
it's been an important discussion, and just tapping back into, I'd like to just obviously mention those who are suffering from domestic violence or feel that they may be. Inshallah, in the description, the links will be there to some support services that you can tap into, inshallah. And it's really important that you do seek out. And I think the important part of it is if you are worried or concerned, to reach out is something very difficult. And those men who are going through it, it took a lot of bravery and confidence for them to actually to reach out to me when that did happen. Unfortunately, I guess, again, I'm not in the position to provide that support, and I had to signpost elsewhere. But it is something which we do need to raise more awareness about, talk about, and to provide that kind of support, because there's a lot of people who are suffering in silence. So that's an important thing there. But with that, inshallah, we'll wrap up today's session. Please, once again, do subscribe, do like, share, drop your comments as well. And don't forget, please do subscribe to our Patreon. It will enable us to continue to make content. And if you're interested in coming to our show and just bombing it a bit like how Brother Tariq did, then, drop a comment down. We might just call you in and hear you out as well, inshallah. So with that, we'll conclude. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.